Hagar, an Egyptian servant, stands as a pivotal figure in the biblical narrative. Her life, marked by hardship and divine encounters, unfolds primarily in the book of Genesis. As a handmaiden to Sarah, the wife of Abraham, Hagar's story intertwines with the broader promise of God to make Abraham a father of many nations. However, her personal journey is one of suffering, exile, and ultimate redemption. This account seeks to delve deeply into her life, exploring her trials, divine encounters, and the legacy she leaves behind. Hagar was an Egyptian woman, likely acquired during Abraham and Sarah's sojourn in Egypt. As Sarah's maidservant, Hagar lived under her mistress's authority, serving her faithfully. The cultural norms of the time dictated that barren women could offer their servants to their husbands to bear children on their behalf. This practice, though legally acceptable in ancient Near Eastern societies, often led to tension and strife within households. Hagar's introduction into Abraham's household was not just as a servant, but as part of a larger divine narrative unfolding through Abraham and Sarah. She was brought into a family that had received a covenant from God, a promise that Abraham would become the father of many nations. Yet, as years passed and Sarah remained barren, doubts and impatience grew. Sarah, feeling the weight of societal expectations and personal despair, decided to take control of the situation rather than wait for God's promise to be fulfilled in his time. Sarah proposed that Abraham take Hagar as a concubine so that she might conceive and bear a child for them. This suggestion was not unusual in ancient customs, where a servant's child could be legally recognized as the offspring of the mistress. Abraham consented, and soon Hagar conceived a son, a moment that altered the course of her life forever. However, while this arrangement was meant to resolve Sarah's distress, it instead led to a new set of complications within the household. With her pregnancy came a shift in Hagar's status. No longer just a maidservant, she carried Abraham's potential heir, which may have given her a sense of importance and superiority. The Bible notes that Hagar began to despise Sarah, possibly feeling that she had been elevated in rank due to her ability to conceive. Sarah, deeply wounded and feeling humiliated, reacted with anger and resentment. This created a deep rift between the two women, one that would ultimately lead to Hagar's suffering and exile. This moment in Hagar's life highlights the complexities of power, status, and human relationships in a society where social hierarchies were rigidly maintained. It also serves as a precursor to the divine intervention that awaited her in the wilderness, proving that even in the midst of human conflicts, God had a plan for Hagar's life and the child she carried. The relationship between Hagar and Sarah was fraught with tension, particularly after Hagar conceived Abraham's child. What initially seemed like a solution to Sarah's barrenness quickly became a source of discord in their household. The Bible states that once Hagar realized she was pregnant, she began to despise her mistress. This likely stemmed from a newfound sense of pride, as she had succeeded where Sarah had failed. She carried Abraham's heir. In a society where childbearing was considered a woman's greatest duty and honor, Hagar may have felt superior to Sarah. Sarah, already struggling with the emotional weight of her infertility, found Hagar's changed attitude unbearable. She perceived it as insolence and disrespect, and her wounded pride turned into resentment. Feeling slighted and humiliated in her own home, Sarah confronted Abraham, holding him accountable for the situation. "You are responsible for the wrong I am suffering," she told him, Genesis 16:5. Though it had been her idea to give Hagar to Abraham, Sarah now regretted the arrangement and demanded justice. Abraham, reluctant to take a firm stance, placed the decision back in Sarah's hands, saying, "Your servant is in your hands. Do with her whatever you think best." Genesis 16:6. This effectively restored Sarah's authority over Hagar, but also gave her free rein to mistreat the pregnant servant. Sarah then dealt harshly with Hagar, subjecting her to severe treatment, possibly physical or verbal abuse. The exact nature of Sarah's actions is not detailed, but it was enough to drive Hagar to flee into the wilderness. The act of running away, especially for a pregnant woman with no resources or protection, underscores the extent of Hagar's suffering. She preferred the uncertainty and danger of the desert to enduring Sarah's cruelty. This highlights the tragic consequences of human impatience and conflict. Sarah's initial decision to give Hagar to Abraham arose from a lack of faith in God's promise. But once circumstances spiraled out of control, her response was not one of humility or seeking God's guidance, but of anger and retaliation. Hagar, too, played a role in escalating the conflict by allowing pride to cloud her judgment. Both women suffered as a result, and their relationship became irreparably damaged. Alone and vulnerable in the desert, Hagar found herself near a spring of water on the way to Shur. It was here that she had a divine encounter that would change her life. The angel of the Lord appeared to her, the first recorded theophany, divine appearance, in Scripture. This encounter was significant not only because it provided immediate relief to Hagar, but also because it affirmed God's awareness of her suffering. The angel of the Lord asked, "Hagar, servant of Sarah, where have you come from, and where are you going?" The question was not just about her physical journey, but also about the trajectory of her life. Hagar admitted she was fleeing from Sarah's mistreatment. The angel then gave her a directive that seemed difficult: return to Sarah and submit to her authority. Yet, with this command came a profound promise: "I will greatly multiply your offspring so that they will be too numerous to count. You are now pregnant and will give birth to a son. You shall name him Ishmael, for the Lord has heard your misery." Genesis 16:10-11. This moment marked a turning point in Hagar's life. She recognized God's presence and named him El Roi, meaning the God who sees me. She understood that she was not forsaken, and with renewed strength, she obeyed the divine command and returned to Sarah's household. After Hagar's return to Abraham's household following her encounter with the angel of the Lord, she gave birth to a son, Ishmael. His name, meaning God hears, was a testament to God's promise and intervention in Hagar's life. However, Ishmael's birth did not resolve the underlying tensions in the household. Instead, it introduced a new dynamic that further complicated relationships. For 13 years, Ishmael grew up as Abraham's only son and heir apparent. During this time, he was raised within the household, receiving the benefits of being Abraham's son, despite his mother's lower status. Hagar likely found solace in the fact that her son was being brought up under Abraham's care, even though her position remained uncertain. However, the situation drastically changed when Sarah, in her old age, miraculously conceived and gave birth to Isaac, the son of promise. This event marked a turning point in the family's dynamic. With Isaac's birth, the covenantal promise of God was fulfilled, and Sarah's position was solidified. But it also meant that Ishmael's position as the presumed heir was now threatened. The tension between the two families reached a climax when Sarah saw Ishmael mocking Isaac. While the Bible does not provide explicit details about what Ishmael said or did, Sarah perceived it as a serious threat to Isaac's future inheritance. She demanded that Abraham cast out Hagar and Ishmael, declaring, "Get rid of that slave woman and her son, for that woman's son will never share in the inheritance with my son Isaac." Genesis 21:10. This was a heartbreaking moment for Abraham. Ishmael was still his son, and he undoubtedly loved him. However, after seeking God's guidance, Abraham obeyed and sent Hagar and Ishmael away with only a small provision of food and water. Once again, Hagar found herself wandering in the wilderness, abandoned and uncertain of her future. As they wandered in the desert of Beersheba, their supplies ran out, and Hagar, overwhelmed with despair, placed Ishmael under a bush, unable to watch him die. In her moment of utter helplessness, she wept and cried out. But once more, God heard their cries. an angel of the Lord appeared, assuring Hagar that God had not forgotten them. The angel reaffirmed God's promise that Ishmael would become a great nation. Then God opened Hagar's eyes to a well of water, ensuring their survival. This second divine encounter reinforced God's faithfulness to Hagar and Ishmael. Though they were cast out, they were not forsaken. Ishmael grew up in the wilderness, becoming a skilled archer, and eventually his descendants became a great nation, fulfilling God's promise. Hagar's journey, filled with suffering and divine intervention, highlights God's compassion for the marginalized. Her story serves as a testament to God's ability to see and hear the cries of the oppressed, offering hope and redemption, even in the most desperate circumstances. Hagar's story does not conclude with her exile. She found a home for Ishmael in the wilderness of Paran and arranged for him to marry an Egyptian woman. Ishmael's descendants became a mighty nation, fulfilling God's promise. His lineage is traditionally linked to the Arab peoples, making Hagar a matriarch of significant historical and religious importance. For many, Hagar's story is one of suffering and displacement, but it is also one of divine care and fulfillment. She was a woman who experienced oppression, yet God saw her, spoke to her, and made promises concerning her future. She named God El Roi because she understood that even in the wilderness, she was never invisible to him. Hagar's journey teaches profound lessons about faith, endurance, and God's providence. She encountered despair, yet found divine comfort. She faced rejection, but received divine promises. Her life demonstrates that God's plans transcend human failures, and that he remains faithful even in the most challenging circumstances. Her legacy lives on, reminding us that no one is beyond God's sight, and his plans for us extend beyond our immediate trials. Through Hagar, we see that God is not only the God of Abraham and Sarah, but also the God of the outcast, the broken, and the marginalized. She stands as a testament to God's ability to bring hope out of suffering and to fulfill his promises in unexpected ways.